Hello everyone, my name's Lee and tonight I want to talk to you about the EU and the forthcoming EU referendum which takes place in 2 weeks on the 23rd of June. This video is to tell you my opinion of the EU and the EU referendum and hopefully to guide you to go to the polling station on June the 23rd and put the cross in the box that enables us to leave as members of the EU and once again become a sovereign nation state as we have been for 1,000 years. For those of you that are young and watching this video and may not be aware of history, I'll give you a brief rundown of the EU. In 1972, Great Britain joined what was then the EEC, the European Economic Community. 3 years later, in 1975, the country had a referendum and we decided to remain as members of the EEC. As the name suggests, the European Economic Community was set up as a free trade area for member states to be able to import and export goods to each other without taxes or tariffs being applied to them. So we could export our goods to the continent and they could export their goods to us without taxes being put on and making those goods too pricey for consumers to buy. It is my belief now that the European Union, as it is now called, has become a political union, and the people of Great Britain did not vote to become members of a political union. We purely voted to become members of a free trade area, and it has gone too far. It's no wonder that the big players in Europe are France and Germany. If you know anything about history, you will know that the French have always been afraid of the Germans, and now that Germany is unified to become one country again, Germany is also afraid of the Germans. A unified Germany has, for at least for 100 years, been a destabilising factor in Europe, and this is the reason that France and Germany are the big players. When it comes to Europe, it's always fascinated me that the European Central Bank was set up and housed in Frankfurt in Germany when London is the premier financial centre of Europe. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's like having a free trade area that covers North and South America and having a central bank that contains all the gold reserves sitting in Bogota in Colombia. It would obviously sit in New York because that is a premier financial centre of the Americas, as London is for Europe. And it concerns me that Germany has become so powerful economically and now calls the shots when just over 70 years ago they were guilty of the biggest genocide in human history. It's not ancient history, this is recent history. And personally, I don't think that they should be calling the shots and telling this country what to do. I want to give you some figures tonight. I know this can be quite boring, but this is to do with you and the money you pay. Our contribution to the EU is £11 billion a year. Now, I'm quite an intelligent guy, despite what people may think, and I had to Google exactly how to write that figure because I wasn't completely sure how many zeros that contained, but for those of you who don't know, that is the figure. It's 11 billion. Now, 11 billion works out to be £250 million a week. That figure is equivalent to going to every Premiership football match that takes place over the course of a week and giving every fan that leaves every ground in England £713 in cash. That is our weekly contribution, which is 250 million. It's not 350 million as quoted in some of the press, it is 250 million. If you do the maths, that's what it works out to be. Alongside the 11 billion we give to Europe, we also give this figure, which is £13 billion, £13,000 million in aid to other countries abroad, which gives us a grand total of 24 billion per year. That's £24,000 million per year of our money that is being given away to people from other countries by our government and our politicians. Now, I realise that we elect these people into power to make decisions for us, but those figures are so mind-boggling that most people you just can't take them in. And I don't think that any government or any individual politician has got the right to sit down and write a cheque for that amount without consulting the people of this country. It's mind-blowing. Okay. I personally think that we have, in the past 40 years, let down the people that traditionally are our allies in the world. I believe that we have let down people from Australia, from Canada, from New Zealand, and from the parts of the old British Empire that fought alongside us for hundreds of years, that stood side by side with us. I feel deeply ashamed, and I would like to publicly apologise to those nations for the lack of help that we give them in times when they come up against natural disasters. It staggers me that we have given no money whatsoever as a nation to the people of Canada after the problems they've had in Fort McMurray, where tens and thousands of people have lost their homes. We do nothing for these people whatsoever, yet we expect them to fight side by side, which they do willingly. I'm ashamed, and I'd like to apologise to the people of those nations I named for our treatment from recently. It makes no sense to me whatsoever that we wish to tie ourselves to people that generally don't like us whatsoever. You can't gild the lily. People from Europe don't like us. You've only got to look at the Eurovision Song Contest and look at the amount of votes that we get to figure out that we're not exactly the most popular people in the world, especially in Europe. I believe that lack of popularity is actually down to jealousy, because I believe that we live in a special country, or lived in a special country, but we'll come on to that later on during this conversation. I believe that in the past 20 years at least, probably 30 years, we have been manipulated by governments into not being as proud to be British as we should be. Our heroes are portrayed as villains to our school children. Everything we've achieved is it's doled down. We did this bad, we did that bad. There's never any mention of all the good stuff we did. It would be impossible for us to administer an empire the like of which had never been seen on this planet and never will be seen again without the cooperation of the members of the empire. Our empire was the biggest empire the world has ever seen. It stretched around the globe. The saying was that the sun never set on the British Empire, and that was true. Now, many of you are probably listening to me thinking, here he goes, he's living in the past. But it's not the past, it's the recent past. It's not hundreds of years ago. We built an empire not only by force of arms, which we're pretty good at, but also through our skills of administration and also as a trading nation. And when I hear our Prime Minister stand up and tell us that we are not capable of running our own affairs in these days of modern technology, it's just mind-boggling. We ran an empire with basically post and with handwritten messages delivered by people on ships and in trains. Does he really think that this nation is not capable of taking care of just us? I frankly think it's insulting for him as Prime Minister to try and say this, and he should be completely ashamed of himself that he's got such a low opinion of the spirit of this nation and the spirit of our people that has been proven again and again, that he doesn't think we can just administer this small island which has given the world so much. Don't listen to what you're told at school. Don't listen to left-wing newspapers and media. You are privileged to live in this country. This is the best country in the world. That is why people fought so fiercely to keep us independent. And what we didn't fight for was for our independence to be given away to people that don't like us. Make no bones about it, these people do not like you, and they do not like me, especially me, because I still am massively proud to come from my nation. It makes me very emotional talking about this, but that's a fantastic thing. If people should be proud to be British. You've done so much for this world. Your ancestors, the people that built this nation, have given the world everything that's worth having. Yeah, we did some bad stuff, but that's the way it goes. We also came to the rescue. Over the past 20 years, our national spirit has been crushed. The nearest we get is cheering a bunch of no-hopers at a football match. If you wear a Union flag, display a St George's cross, you're immediately branded as being racist. This is not the case. We are just proud to be the greatest people on this planet. And if anyone thinks that's not true, I suggest you go to Heathrow Airport and get on a plane and go somewhere else. That would be my opinion. I've been looking at the member states that are thinking about joining the EU and may become members, and these are Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro, Albania, Kosovo, Macedonia, and God forbid Turkey. The average monthly wage in these countries is, I would say, £280 a month, whereas the average wage in the UK is £1,792 a month. So you can see why this country is so attractive for people to come and to stay in. Let's be fair, they don't come here for the weather. It's been nice this week, but it's generally not the greatest weather. They come here because we are a thriving nation. We've now got the best economy in Europe, which we have built once again through the sacrifice of our people. I'm a builder by trade, and over the past 3 years, I have not worked with a single Englishman, let alone a Scotsman or an Irishman or a Welshman. I fit kitchens. They generally take 2 weeks to fit. So if you can work out how many kitchens I've done in 3 years, when each kitchen takes 2 weeks, you can imagine how many people from Eastern Europe I've worked with. Now, as people, they're quite nice. I can't say they're not, because they are. They're very friendly, reasonably hardworking, no more hardworking than we are. It's a fallacy to say they outwork us. That's complete rubbish. That's just put over by people that employ them as justification for paying them a cheaper wage than they pay us. They come here and they work, and as long as they pay their taxes and they abide by our laws and customs, I have no problem with people come to this country. We need immigration, but it must be controlled. There's been a lot of talk on TV lately of the net migration figure. Now, this is a very, very misleading figure. Let me quote some figures. I've had to write these down because there's quite a bit on here. In 2014, 641,000 people arrived on these shores and 323,000 left. Now, the ones that left were either people going back to Eastern Europe or good people from this country going to Canada, Australia, sometimes America and New Zealand to seek new lives. I believe that these people are leaving this country to seek a life that their parents had and their grandparents had in a safe and secure country. I digressed a bit there, so apologies. So anyway, in 2014, 323,000 people left and 641,000 arrived, which gave us a net migration of 318,000. That doesn't mean only 318,000 came. It means that's a difference between who left and who arrived. So what you're losing is maybe 250,000 good, hard-working, honest people with trades and money behind them, and you're importing over 500,000 people that don't fall into the same categories I've just mentioned. The benefit system in this country favours people from foreign countries. I don't blame them for coming here and drawing benefits. If I had nothing whatsoever and there was adverts in my newspapers and on my TV telling me there was this country that you could go to and they would give you a house, money, they would give you free healthcare, free education for your children, They would upgrade your driving licence to a full UK driving licence and motorcycle licence, may I add. I would be on the first plane or boat to this promised land. It's good that we've got a conscience and that we want to help people, but you cannot put people in front of our own people. People in their 70s and 80s that survived the Second World War are now being put on the shelf, and that people from foreign countries are being put in front of them because we have this national conscience about all the terrible things that we've done. I get sick to my back teeth of hearing my government from my country apologising to people from other countries. It's getting to the point, to be honest with you, where we're running out of people to apologise to, and it will probably get to the stage where someone will contact our government and say, look, we're the only people left in the world that you haven't apologised to, and even though you haven't actually done anything to us, can we have an apology? Because we feel a bit left out. And then we'll probably issue an apology to them as well. Yes, as I said earlier, we made some mistakes, but we did a hell of a lot of good as well. As with the Eastern European guys that come to this country, one thing that concerns me a lot is not only the cash payments that they take, which I see on a regular basis. Not all Eastern European guys work cash in the hand, but a lot of people do. And the people that are employing these Eastern European guys that are working for cash are generally people that live in the sort of houses that I work in, which average between 1.5 and anything up to £9 million. So these are the people that have got a vested interest in keeping these people in the country. And this is why the media and people in charge are so desperate to keep the status quo. They don't want people to realise the figures involved in these people being in this country. Most of the time at work, I am, as I said, the only Englishman. I'm a non-smoker. This is not the case with most Eastern European guys. If you drive through West London, where I work, Wandsworth, Balham, Clapham, Battersea, Wandsworth, all of the good areas, you will see in the morning Eastern European guys walking down the road wearing their clothes they've purchased from sportsdirect.com and all smoking like chimneys. Now, they keep themselves fairly fit because they're hard working, but it concerns me a great deal that there is a time bomb waiting for this country to pick up the tab for these men and women who smoke so excessively, when we have been brainwashed and manipulated by our press and our government into giving up smoking en masse. You see very few Englishmen on building sites these days smoking, but most Eastern European guys smoke, and this has got to be a thing that we're going to reap it's going to be a thing that we're going to suffer for in years to come financially. I listened to the radio the other day, and there was a Polish lady came on LBC, and it was a discussion about misdiagnosis in the NHS. This lady had been complaining of headaches, and she had been to the hospital and the doctor several times and been told it was probably a cause. It was the menopause that was the reason behind her headaches. She then flew back to Poland, had a brain scan, and it transpired that she actually was suffering from a brain tumour. Now this is very sad, but she then jumped back on a plane. She came to England and she had her brain tumour operated on and all of her aftercare paid for on the National Health Service. And when she was asked why she did this, she told the reporter quite blatantly, because if she'd have had it done in Poland, then she'd have had to pay for the operation. As it was, she could come and get her operation done on the International Health Service, as I now call it, free of charge. Now, even if that lady had been in this country for 10 years and paid national insurance, there's no way that the figure she paid in national insurance would pay for the care that she received. It's a shortfall. Not only do we have people coming from Eastern Europe for operations, we also have people coming from many other parts of the world. I've got a good friend of mine who works at Heathrow Airport, and he told me that when flights come from Jamaica, there's more wheelchairs going on board than there is sniffer dogs. Whether they think there's some kind of a miracle cure in this country, I don't think so. Personally, I think they're coming here for free healthcare. I pay my tax, I pay my national insurance, and I don't expect to fund people from other countries who don't have the benefit system we have. If people are generally ill in this country, that's fine, take care of them first. The elderly in this country, as I said earlier, have suffered greatly from immigration. Make no mistake, this EU referendum, although it is on the economy, the big portion of people in this country are voting for immigration to cease or at least be curtailed. Immigration has got out of control. When we fought the Second World War and the First World War, we fought for our way of life. The men on the landing craft at D-Day were not going onto the beaches to fight for fields and trees and stiles and cows in the field and John Constable-like landscapes. They went to fight for our way of life. And it is my opinion that our way of life is now, it's being given away. We were a beacon for the world of freedom and democracy. And I now see many situations where this is not the case. It cannot be right that we allow people that have lived through a world war to freeze and starve to death in their own homes. This is not acceptable in my country, that these people can basically be put on a scrap heap so that they die quickly and their houses can then be given to people from other countries who jump the queue. I've got two stepsons. I live in Sutton in Surrey, and both of those stepsons have had to move to Kent, at least 100 miles from where we live, because there is no possibility whatsoever of them being housed. Their children would not get a place in school, so they had to do what they had to do, which was move down to Kent, 100 miles from me and my wife. I don't think that's right. They've been born and brought up in this country, and if they can't afford to buy somewhere, which is the majority of young people in this country, especially in London, they should be housed by the state. You shouldn't have a situation where people from abroad are coming in and jump in the queue. Well, I've spoken quite a bit now. I've done 20 minutes, so you're probably all getting a bit bored by now. Another thing is the metric weights and measures system that we've been forced to adopt in this country. I don't understand why we've been forced to adopt that at all. Most people in this country, even though it's been in force for at least 20 years, have got no concept of the metric system. I truly believe it puts people's lives at risk. If you hear a weather forecast and you're in your 60s and the weather forecaster tells you that 25 millimetres of rain is going to fall, you would not have a clue what that means. If someone says an inch of rain is going to fall, you know that's a good downpour. In certain places in the UK, this can actually put people's lives in danger. Metrification is a thing that really winds me up. I listen to the weather forecast and I hear the temperature being broadcast in Celsius when I've not got a clue what that means. I work in Fahrenheit. I know that if the forecaster says today it's 70 degrees, that is a lovely day. If he says it's 80 degrees, that's an even better day. If he says it's 30 degrees, I have not got a clue what that means. So I'm unprepared for the weather. David Cameron. Right, David Cameron. Had we have realised that David Cameron was pro-European, we would never have elected him as leader of the Conservative Party, let alone Prime Minister of this country. One of the most intelligent and able politicians of the last generation, Kenneth Clarke, who was Chancellor of the Exchequer under Margaret Thatcher, never got a chance to be Conservative leader because he was pro-Europe, a Europhile. He made no bones about this, and he still campaigns and is campaigning at the moment for us to remain members of the EU. David Cameron, even though I think he has probably people's best and this nation's best intentions at heart, he's proved himself to be a jellyfish of a man. He went to negotiate with Europe before this referendum and gained absolutely nothing. I'll give you a brief rundown of what Mr. Cameron should have said. He walks into a room and there's all the heads of state of the member nations of the European community sitting around the table. And what he should have said was, listen to us, listen to me. I am the Prime Minister of the greatest country on this planet. If it wasn't for my country and the Americans and the people from our empire that fought alongside us, there would be no EU. None of you would have any jobs. You would all be living in a massive German superstate. We saved this continent twice, and you owe us a debt of gratitude. If you don't do exactly as I'm telling you to do, we will leave Europe. I will advise my people to vote to leave the EU, and the whole thing will collapse like a deck of cards. So you better wise up and you better listen to us, because we are going to call the shots from now on. That is how we should have spoke to them. You don't go into a battle with anyone meek and mild and glib. You stand your corner and you fight for the people that elected you as Prime Minister of this country, a country that you should be proud to represent. Okay folks, I'm going to sign off now. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope it's provoked you to think about the EU, and hopefully to go on the 23rd of June and vote for us to leave the EU. Good evening.